Hey, hey, welcome to Stitches and Picks. I'm Kristen,
Dave.
and today I'm really excited. Our topic is social media. I'm particularly excited because this is like my background. I kind of came up in the world of social media into digital marketing in my 9 to 5. So I think we have a lot of good things to jump into.
Mhm.
We started talking about this because Dave and I coincidentally, which maybe is not coincidentally, both this week have been working on more of like social media strategies and things of that nature. So you're
Mhm.
telling me about like you're playing with shorts, YouTube shorts?
Yeah, so I think in a previous episode we talked about how most of my content strategy is do the big thing and then chop it down into smaller bits. Um,
Reuse
so
content.
exactly, in that way you touch it once, it's just done, and then you can come back to it later, like way later. Um, So I've built that into my process, right? I record these 20-minute videos or longer, and then chapter them and find the right moments and pull them out. But they're all captured at the horizontal frame
Oh
rate,
yeah.
whatever that is, not frame rate.
So
Um,
you're shooting landscape and you're not
right.
shooting with two cameras at the same time. So you're having to go in and then post edit.
So I'm doing a 2 camera setup for the guitar stuff, right? So you get the hand and the
Mm,
full body um, image, you get the full context and stuff. So that is part of the setup. But once you get all the editing and stuff in there, it is. I mean, I'm optimizing for YouTube and people consuming via
right.
YouTube, right? So then when it comes down to getting into shorts or reels, or even just finding stuff for TikTok, um, I have those landscape areas, but shorts and reels and everything else wants you to um, do the vertical. So there's been a bit of a challenge just to play around with it, because I thought, well, I'll just cut it in a certain way and then zoom it out, or drop it into
Yeah.
Canva and just have a black background with the little horizontal piece in the middle. And it's not perfect, but it's something, right? And you're doing the thing. Progress over perfection, right?
Oh yeah. No, it's
um,
apply appropriate effort. I feel like is
mhm,
a great way to like think about it. And I was gonna ask him like, how did that work? Because when I was in social media for my 9 to 5, like 3 years ago, Canva didn't have that type of stuff. And you
mhm,
couldn't just like drag and drop stuff and like you had to like recut it, and we had to pay agencies to film in 3 different modes at the exact same time. And it takes a ton of work, whether it's editing or
mhm.
actually filming to create the content to get it correct for each platform. People miss that, I think.
Yeah, and I think the main reason I didn't want to do Reels or TikTok or anything, from the get-go, is that it's sort of that diminishing return, right? You only have a post that lasts for 6 hours and then it's done, or 20 minutes and then it's done, right? Just because of the platforms and how much they like to show your content on their platforms. um but then, like, last, what was it, I think in December 21, there was a stat that TikTok was the most visited web page over the Google search bar. For the
Mm.
first time since people were tracking that kind of thing, the Google search page was something other than number one.
I
And
love
that
that
was,
it needs to surpass Google in order to get on your radar.
well, it was one of those, like, I knew I had to do it, but then when you hear a
Yeah.
stat like that, I'm like,
Yeah.
I have to stop fighting it. I just have to
Yep.
accept it and do it.
Do.
Um, so it was interesting because, like, I have things scheduled out. I know what the content I'm going to be producing over the next quarter is, in terms of the
Right.
videos and the shorts and the newsletters, and here's how they all tie together. And, I do the planning that way. Um, but TikTok, when you load it into to do the thing, they will only let you schedule 2 weeks out. And that is
I didn't know
really
that.
obnoxious for
I've
me.
only been putting stuff in drafts and then hitting like, so, okay, that's super interesting.
And so it happened to me a couple times today. I'm not going to say that I'm an expert. I'm flagging it as something interesting that I discovered that I'm going to look more into. But the 2-week limit really bugs me. Instagram has a limit itself as well in terms of how far out you can post, but it's, I think, like month and a half, 2 months, rather than
more reasonable.
2 weeks. Yeah, I mean, because if I have all the content, I don't want to be coming back every week to then, push publish, right? I want to have it set up.
It's just running in sprints, and they want you to plan out 2-week sprints for your content.
Good for them.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to incorporate that into my reality. I'm sorry. I have,
That's fair.
When we've talked about balance of all these other things, like I cannot be logging in and doing social every day for, more than
at some point, that's
15
dream,
minutes.
right?
Well, I think so. I mean, I want to be involved a little bit. Like I want to answer questions, but I have no notifications on my phone because, to the other conversations that we've had, I have to balance things out. I have to be present for the people I care about. I'm not just gonna,
absolutely.
Randomly
I don't have notifications either. We've never talked about this.
Really?
I don't get Facebook notifications and I don't get TikTok notifications. I think I do get Instagram, but I literally none of them provide any value for me whatsoever. And so I just ignore them and I don't care.
Yeah, the ones that really annoy me are the, so-and-so posted a video. I
know. Yeah.
Why would I care about that?
If I cared, I'd be on there looking for it. Thanks. Bye.
Although that could just be us being curmudgeon-y.
I mean, this is the second time today I've been like, oh, am I an old?
Yeah, we are. Yeah. We're just coming to terms with it, I think.
We are. What else did you learn with scheduling? Because now that you have this 2-week scheduling thing on TikTok, I need you to tell me all the things so that I don't have to go through it myself.
Well, just the main promotion for us at VGO really is, Facebook and Instagram, just because of the cross posting. Do it once, be done, right? Sure. And then we're getting into TikTok just because, interestingly enough, I have enough data now to say this. We are living up to some of the stereotypes in terms of who the audience segments are based on the channel. So with Facebook, all of the people who are organically liking, because I'm not doing any ads yet, right? I'm just promoting the stuff as it comes organically, right? And it is, I would say, 35 plus would be the age range, probably higher than that, but I want to, there are a few people. And so that's on Facebook. It's a little bit younger on Instagram. It seems to be more bots though. Or
on Instagram?
Well, I'm using bots liberally in terms of spammy, spammy accounts or that
got
kind of thing. Being tagged in the comments.
I have never seen a bot on Instagram. I have. I've seen many.
Right. I was just tagged on some comment on, buy a bunch of followers. I'm I will never do this. So of course, reported the comment and blocked the person. But so Facebook and Instagram, you can do, 2 months out.
Okay, pause. Facebook and Instagram, you're posting from the Facebook, the native Facebook poster.
I'm doing the creator suite. Yeah. The creator studio.
I did social media for 9 to 5. I should know what they're called. I don't even remember it. I don't remember it. I've pushed that out of my mind.
there's been so many changes and stuff though.
No, they change them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I did paid social media. I put money behind ads. I did not do organic strategy. Although in theory, all of your page should follow, like, work in conjunction with your organic to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
I can get into that in a different day if we want to, or I could talk about that today.
Well, yeah, we'll see where the conversation takes us.
We'll see.
So yeah, I mean, the interesting thing for me, at least my social strategy with BGO really was test the assumptions, right? Because 7 years ago, when I was in the agency world and I was doing this for, clients, it was a totally different ball game, right? You could buy Facebook ads for like a cent. And the pages were a big thing. The groups weren't even really a thing.
Groups weren't.
Instagram really wasn't a thing yet either. It was kind of, but not really.
It was not for the olds, and it wasn't for ads or for
and I was working with B2B and some e-commerce clients, so it wasn't like super high for that at that point.
Wasn't a thing.
But I knew that what worked then, like I knew enough to know that what worked then would not work today. And I've tested that out through the curation of other people's posts, and I put those out on Facebook and Twitter. Twitter is awful for us, so I've stopped.
Twitter is not my platform. I am not screaming into the void, and I'm not in politics. So
but if you're looking to get to PR professionals or the media, it is your platform.
Yeah, that's true.
So to have a presence there could be important if you need.
It seems like there's some holdover for like maybe IT folks and other like pockets of places, like not only hobbies, but professions and stuff too. So it definitely just depends. Your earlier point about the audience lines up with who you would think would be on those platforms, I think is a really interesting thing to examine, because it's like, if you want your audience to be if you're aiming specifically at a like 35 plus because they have more disposable income, especially in this time of whatever, like, then maybe you want to put more effort behind it in one way or the other. And I think people always think, I want to go after the youngest generation. It isn't a bad strategy, because the youngest generation tends to be like the influencers, and they have a lot of power in word of mouth and reposting and things of that nature, but they don't necessarily always, and depending on what market you're in, don't always have the power in purchase,
right? If
that's what you're after.
Well, and it's funny. So this aligns with a conversation I was having with a musician friend of mine. We were talking about sort of the life cycle of bands, right? And there's a thing called the sophomore curse, which is like most bands will get to the second record and then die. Okay. And because it takes 10 years basically of gigging and being with each other to get signed, and then all of a sudden you're like, what, I'm sick of being in a band with you.
That makes sense.
But of the band, let's just say the band stays beyond 2 years and is like Metallica, Bon Jovi, Aerosmith, like those bands with huge longevity, right? In general, you have when they come out and all the teenagers love them, and then they grow up with the band, and then all of a sudden they start having kids, and the attendance drops at the concerts.
Yeah.
And then there's this dip where, babysitters are hard. The taste in music changes, with the kind of cultural zeitgeist. And then all of a sudden, if you can hold on during those years, all of a sudden those people can start going to concerts again, and they want to bring whoever they can to those concerts. So then, boom, you're selling out stadiums or whatever else again.
That's such a long life cycle. I actually was talking about something similar with my sister. So she runs her own business, and there is a seasonality. And like, I think we see this in marketing all the time, but we don't talk about it very much, which is, and my camera's okay. We don't talk about it. Like, obviously in knitting, there's a seasonality. You can look, if you want to know any seasonality, go on to Google Trends and type in your most broad keyword about your niche, and you are going to see that seasonality. You know what? One thing was not that I would disagree on: coffee. Coffee did not have a seasonality to it. Not surprising. People love their coffee year round. You're going to find out a lot of information about that. And you need, like, I think when people see that, it's not just marketing. It's understand that if you are like e-commerce, you're potentially going to see a dip in your sales during that time too. So you have two options. You can roll with the punches, or you can figure out how to, what's the driving force behind that. In knitting, it's going to be like, it's warm outside for a lot more places. So people are not going to be knitting sweaters or scarves or mittens or hats. What will they make? Maybe if they're really into knitting, what will they knit? Tank tops, headbands, like things that they can actually wear, and in lighter materials. So like, then you could offer up deals on different things, and you can either combat that with your marketing, or you can just roll with the tide.
Right. Or so you could set up your marketing by hemisphere, so that you have your winter collection for 6 months, you know, in the north and then in the south, and then just take the learnings and improve on them and go. Yeah.
See, so those bands, really what they needed to be doing was be like, we have a top play area where we'll pay for, you can send your kids to this place for free. Not reality. I know, because and they would just have to have you just don't have
do you think, you know, Beyonce would not have the same sort of allure if she had, you know, a play place attached to the...
Probably not. Yeah. There is that whole like branding like look to it as well, but
it is interesting because, like, you know, when you talk about some of these, you know, bigger people like, you know, Beyonce, who I think just released a new record. I have to double check. But one of the ways that they maintain the relevancy is to just do guest spots on other people's, you know, songs, right? So you get a marginal, you know, revenue thing, you know, from guesting on somebody's thing, but, you know, it at least keeps you in the front of mind of people. And it's the same thing with, you see that with the influencers and whatever in the B2B space too. You might be pushing your own course or your own blog or your own products, but you know what, if you can jump on somebody else's podcast or somebody else's, you know, YouTube channel and provide value that way, not only getting a new audience, a potential new audience from them, but your own fans will see that you're continuing to work, and you know, you're still there. You're not just fading off into, you know, the distance for 3 months and then, you know, oh, whatever happened to so-and-so.
Exactly. So it's a different tactic for a different strategy, realizing that your sales may not go up, but you're right. The idea then is, my brand, I still want to be in the front of people's mind. I want to be relevant to them. How can I do that? I'm either going to put my time and effort or my money behind other tactics besides just getting in front of them to make a sale. And and I think one thing that we forget a lot too is, when we do that, we expect the same returns. And it's not. When you have a different strategy for that type of, I'm going to call it a campaign, because it's a different time, right? Like, it's a different frame of reference. You have to just measure it differently in your head too. And I think that's really hard to do when you're doing your own thing, because we're so focused on the sale. We're so focused on the very end, the very bottom of the funnel, trying to get people to actually like purchase. But that isn't necessarily always what's best for us. And it's not what's necessarily best for our mental health too, when you're thinking about like the reality of things, and kind of getting that like arm's length distance, so you can have a really healthy relationship with what you need to do in order to eventually continue to get that sale.
Right. You know, and no matter what sort of philosophy you go under, right, with the marketing funnel, or, you know, HubSpot has the flywheel idea that it's, you know, this sort of virtuous cycle. Either way, you have to get new people into that particular, you know, system of thought. So, I mean, even with our day jobs, the biggest argument that I have in my 9 to 5. It's not just about the bottom of the funnel, because you need new people going into the top.
Exactly.
And then the experience you have, throughout the the customer journey, then all of that plays into it. The perfect example. So like I know how to build out a sales funnel for the guitar stuff, except I don't have anything to sell. I just have the knowledge content. At this point when we're recording this. But the interesting thing is, so I've had my music out for, forever and a day. And again, I've never done any ads. I've only ever done like, the local gigs and whatever else. But through posting the videos for guitar and reactivating some of the social media stuff, even just reposting the BGO stuff onto, my personal accounts or my, Dave Dougherty media page, I'm seeing increased streams globally, not just in the US. So the vast majority of my stream, money comes from Europe and China for whatever reason. Never done a gig there, never done any press there, never done anything other than just, here you go, check it out. So, it's like, is it totally attributable? No. But when you look at the months that things come up, it's because I've been putting out, the content with this other thing, and people are naturally curious and will, dive in a little deeper. So,
that's a really
it's a
good
virtuous
point
thing
too. I haven't thought about that for my stuff, of people like diving deeper or to like validate or just to be interested in it. So that's going to be interesting to see how that kind of populates.
You sound almost like nervous about that. Like, what do you mean?
I mean, I know exactly what I have out there. So it's just like, I don't know. I think it's because I haven't been super great about even my personal presence on social media. And like some of that's very intentional. Like I don't post on Facebook like anymore. I have friends that I still will go on there because there's a few like actually ironically, I don't know. It's the whole group thing actually they've done a good job. I hate to say this. They've done a pretty good job with groups, and people do utilize them. And there are quite a few that I've gotten really great information from and connect with people on. But yeah, in general, like I don't post a ton. So it's kind of like, I probably should start to think about that as a piece of this too, and just not completely neglect it.
Well, and it's funny because, so, you know me well enough to know that I tend to overthink everything. And before I launched BGO, I took 2 months, I think. And I went through every Twitter post under my personal account that I had done from 2007 until whatever the date was, 2020. And I got rid of anything that would be, moderately offensive, or that was young Dave, he didn't know that would be offensive.
No longer agree.
Yeah, exactly. And so, because it was, to that point, if people are curious, if they find me, if something happens and I need to, be in front of a news reporter or something, and I have to say something, I don't want them to say, "Oh, tell me about this tweet in 2007 when you made a joke about, the French." And I'm like, what?
I mean, that did happen to a bunch of YouTubers. So it is in the realm of possibility that like,
exactly. And it happened to Kevin Hart, and it happened to, a whole bunch of comedians. So, I just, and it might not ever happen, and that's cool. Now somebody's probably going to play gotcha with me.
I mean, better to get it out now, right?
Exactly. So I went through just to make sure that
and find something.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I went through and I made sure that I was comfortable with what was showing, at least, to that time. And I made sure that, I'm going to take down a lot of photos of like me and the family, because, people don't need to see that. I don't want, my Instagram doesn't necessarily have to be that,
Side note. best thing I ever did when I had my daughter, I created a shared album. I have iPhone and most of my family all had iPhones. So like it worked out really well. Created a shared album and I posted all my baby pictures in there so that I didn't have to broadcast to the world my baby unless I wanted to. It was very like, I wanted them to be able to see every single picture, every single emotion, every single everything. But I didn't want the rest of the world. I didn't want the rest of the world to have 24/7 access to me. And that was a personal choice I wanted. So highly recommend doing that because they can still like and comment and stuff in the shared album, but you can control who can see it. And it's not owned by Facebook. Sure, it's probably like Apple property, but whatever. Like you got to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah, I did something similar. So I have shared albums for vacations and, we have one for Anders and, so the things that I do post with him are very, very selective. But yeah, I mean, I think it's something to think about, is it necessary to go through, a huge chunk of your life to go through it and get started? Absolutely not. I would say get started and, there's, plenty of things, for,
the emotional whirlwind that you then have to go through.
Well, yeah, there might be some of that. So long-winded way of saying it's a personal choice. Might be interesting to go through and look back at history. As a history buff, I kind of like that kind of stuff. And as a writer, it's complete fodder for, the creativity.
Fair.
But there's plenty of memories you don't want to revisit. And, God forbid they're on a social platform forever.
I did a pretty good job, I think, of deleting a bunch of those right after I realized that those memories were not something that I wanted to take with me into my future. So I think I did a pretty good job on a bunch of that stuff, but I'm sure I'll be proved wrong at some point. Yeah. My daughter will be like 18 and being like, what's this? Oops. So no, this week when I was looking at, Canva. Okay, I'm blown away by Canva, and
Isn't it great? Yeah.
I don't want to be a stan, but like Canva's great. Like this is bullshit how great it is. And they did not pay me to say that.
Although we're happy to partner. Should anybody in Canva, be listening?
Very happy to partner. So I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts. With an emphasis in photography. I have been in Photoshop since 2005. Nope, even before that. I've been in Photoshop like when Photoshop Elements was around and it like you had to download on your computer, all of that stuff. I have CDs of Photoshop. Yes, CDs of Photoshop. So I did not even comprehend that we would get to a point in our technology journey in which like you could literally just drag and drop and template, like all of it's there. And so I went down a rabbit hole the other night and I was like, okay, I had already listed out my content strategy, at least in higher level terms of like, here's how my brand is, here's how I want to show up, here's what I want to do. Part of my piece is like, and I say this and part of me is like, because saying it out loud makes it real. And I don't feel like I am totally ready to make this real to some degree because I recognize the time commitment that this takes. But like, I'm going to say it and I'm going to say it because you know what? I've said this stuff before and then it doesn't make whatever. So I recognize that social is a really great place to create a community. We've talked about creating community and having conversations before. And I actually think that that's probably the biggest and also most interesting part about creating your own side thing is you can have this community of people who are like-minded or interested in the same things you are. It's also really freaking scary. Anyways, so that's part of my strategy on social media is to create more of a dynamic where it's a community. One of those items is that on Instagram, I want to do those polls that are in stories. And it's been really daunting for me to think about doing that. I have it like listed out in my content plan. I have how it could complement other things and how it could help me really inform my designs. Or I could there's a million things. I could do a poll on, do people like to create seamless sweaters? Or do they actually want to sew up sweaters? And while it wouldn't be like an overarching survey with a really good sampling set, it still is really interesting to partake in that conversation and get some of that data. So I was in Canva and I'm seeing all these templates of questions and I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, this is so cool. And I think one of the most daunting parts also, weirdly enough, is like the photography aspect. And I think we probably kind of talked about this before, of like, I have really high standards for my photography. And even when it's for like a really basic thing. And because it's such a high standard, I just feel like no matter what I do is not good enough. And so I don't really want to put it out there. Like, I'm willing to put out my knitting, like the actual patterns and like and I'm not trained in that, right? Like, I'm comfortable putting that out into the world, but putting my photographs out into the world, not comfortable for me. So I was really thrilled to find that Canva had these templates and like graphics and pictures and stuff that I could utilize already, that I don't have to like put time and effort behind, other than making sure that it fits into my content strategy.
Right.
Because I don't then have to worry about the pictures as well.
Well, and one of the big takeaways from the last couple of years of doing this is, you know, now more so than any other time, with the tools that are out there and the free stock photos that are available, like the burden of the creative is so much lower, you know. Now, the other problem is there's been plenty of times where something that I've thought about using, I then see in somebody else's newsletter or, you know, things like that. And it's like, not going to use that anymore. Yeah.
There's like 3 pictures I see everywhere.
Yeah. But I mean, that was the big daunting thing. Like, I first had the idea for BGO, I think in 2014. And when I started asking, you know, working at the agency, we had a video guy. So I started asking him about video production. Okay, what do you need? How do I need to do it? And he started listing out all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like 10 grand. I don't have 10 grand.
Yep.
You know, just because you needed a computer that had such massive processing power that,
yep,
you know, that would be the dedicated machine for video.
Yep.
And, you know, now everything has gotten so much better that you don't have to, right? Yep. So, you know, I think that's great. I think more people should be, you know, creative and dive into things. You know, but now it's just the psychology of it. Like, you are preventing you because the tools are out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
it almost makes it harder in some ways because you have to confront that and not just be like, oh, well, I can't.
Right.
And weirdly enough, like, and this is kind of how I feel about this at like my 9 to 5 too. People are like, I can't do that. I'm like, what do you mean you can't do that? There's like, Google it. But, and I shouldn't say my current 9 to 5. My current 9 to 5 people are really great about that. But other places I've been, they're like, what's this? And I'm like, Google. Google it.
I heard an interview with, you know, David Sedaris recently. I think it was on the new Conan, you know, Conan Needs a Friend podcast, which is hilarious if you need something silly in your life.
Heard of this. Okay.
It's him unfiltered, which is really interesting. And it's just silliness and awesome. It's silliness and awesome. Okay. So, but he was interviewing David Sedaris, and Sedaris apparently had to change the title because Walmart wouldn't take his, you know, new book based on the title that he had previously. So they changed the title. He's like, I'll change the title, but I wanted like a really creepy clown on the cover. So then the way that he talked about it was the publisher started, you know, sending all these happy-go-lucky, you know, clowns, and he's like, no, none of that. And so he,
like, no, an actual creepy clown.
Yeah. So then they're like, wow, this, you know, this photo is really creepy. Like, where'd you find it? He's like, I Googled creepy clown, you know, 50s. And that was how he found his book cover.
But like, that has IP behind it. Like, please tell me they paid the
Well, I don't know any of the background stuff. I'm only saying what I heard on the podcast because it's
my like worry is like, oh my God, that person didn't get paid.
Oh, I'm sure they did all the proper things because it's a major publisher. And,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if David Sedaris is, doing the same thing, then all right, cool. Then, somebody who's at the top of their game doing the same thing, then I'm going to do it because why not?
I literally looked at these templates and was like, oh, that's a close up of knitwear. Like I could do that. I could just also take the one that I'm looking at and use that. Like,
yeah.
I think it's partly like I really like to do that stuff too. It's there's a lot in it. There's a lot into that.
I think the big thing for me is getting a consistent look and feel. That's what I'm more concerned about.
Oh my God, yeah.
With getting the, my own shots or, leveraging some stock photos. Because I couldn't do the website. Like if I had to do all unique, guitar photos, I wouldn't have been able to launch it. Like, being able to leverage some of the free stock photo things that gave me full rights to do whatever with the images, which is really important. Make sure you have, all of those rights. Otherwise that will bite you in the bum.
If you type in like free photographs or free stock photography, there's like a ton of places that have free ones. You'd have to almost go out of your way and be really, really lazy to like use something that's not available.
Yeah. But so, yeah, I think it was just an interesting experience, finally leveraging that. And, part of the thing that made me feel okay with it was just seeing every client that I had and big enterprises to small creators, using it. And it's just like, well, why am I getting in my own way?
That's a really good way to think of it. I'm getting in my own way. I still even saying that, I still am like, but you can do the photographs.
But you're not. So that's.
But I'm not. So you either need to be you're not doing it. You're going to use stock photography, and here's until then, and then you'll reassess. Or.
Okay, so that was a interesting ordeal. Yeah, so our platform, for whatever reason, put Kristen into a loop in my headphones, so I couldn't hear anything, and then it took a whole bunch to troubleshoot. But none of that matters if you're listening to it real time. So we'll continue on to the conversation wherever it left off.
I think I was on a loop on the word or. So I think what I was saying was that I either need to commit or just commit to doing my own photographs or just use stock photos and just be okay with it. So I need to make a decision on that.
I think the thing for me when I did it was I wanted to do my own photos, right? But again, I didn't have the time.
Totally.
Because I knew it would take so much time and I knew I didn't have the right equipment for it. And I would just have to experiment with, shooting all the guitars that I have. But the problem is I like high gloss finishes on my guitar, which is not conducive to, amateur photography.
I was gonna say, I could handle that shit. I did I did my baby's milestone photos, professional photos. So I feel like I have this thing that I have to live up to. I don't. I know I don't.
I think the one thing is because you're not doing it fully professionally, but I
have the full equipment. I have everything I need.
Yeah. Then it does go back to your question. And it's interesting because I've been in a rabbit hole of David Chang for a little bit in terms of watching all the shows, and then I discovered he has 2 different podcasts that he does.
I love David Chang so much. So
he's
Momofuku for life.
Yeah, you can buy his noodles now. Have you been targeted by those Instagram ads? Yeah. Okay.
His seasoning salts.
Nice. But anyway, the
Instagram watcher of him as well.
Okay. His latest book was really fun. I love the idea of a cookbook without any recipes. So check that out about home cooking. Okay. But I found an interview that he did with JJ Redick from the NBA, who is also kind of a big foodie and media guy and just a really interesting character. But they had this fascinating discussion on chefs and creativity and peaking. You know, whenever you take something to a professional level, right, there's eventually going to be a peak in your career where you were the most innovative or you were the highest performing or, you know, things like that. And it was fascinating to listen to Chang say, yeah, I think it's like 27 to 35 or something. That he thought chefs, age on it? He did put an age on it. And then, you know, Reddick did too, because, you know, you start aging out of the NBA, right? You start getting slower. You have to
their things.
Right. Okay. Right. So it was a general discussion of just, you know, like, okay, you put in all this work to go, you know, wherever, but there's something about youthful naivete and arrogance that allows you to innovate and just do things without caring. Right?
David Chang actually talked about this at HubSpot's conference as well.
Okay. Interesting.
He was like, I don't know if it was just the fact that I was just naive and just thought I could do everything and anything. And so I just started my own restaurant and like, and I don't agree with the age frame on like that you can apply it to everything, but I do agree that like, it's not whether it's like naivety or like just blind confidence. You almost need to have like this just blind belief that you have the ability to do this, that allows you to be creative, that allows you to like be strategic, that allows you to, because if you don't, you're doing what, like you were talking about, like you're overthinking every little thing, or you're like really in the details. And that's not what's going to get you to where you need to go, because you're going to be putting all your effort behind every little thing versus saying, what can I let drop and what should I actually put my effort and time behind? Because as we know, time is finite. Energy is finite.
And yeah, they go through this whole thing on, and I know you and I have had this conversation in terms of like careers and, you know, if anybody's listening and you're considering, okay, do I want the anchor gig? You know, do I want the normal 9 to 5 or do I want my own thing? You know, that is a decision you have to make for yourself. But
absolutely,
for them to talk about sort of putting in the work and becoming a really good craftsman, like there are some people that, you know, are just technicians and they're amazing. And that's it. But there's not necessarily the huge innovation that comes from that, right? It's a step change because you know your craft really, really well and you figure out a better way of doing it a little bit, right? But if you want that huge, you know, sort of innovation, then you have to know a little bit about a lot and have that ambition to say, you know what, I think I can do this. I'm just going to do it.
Hear this today.
Okay.
And maybe not necessarily today, but the recent, like in this time frame, I needed to hear this as it applies to my side stuff, because like, I think I've talked about the templates that I'm putting together to scale my business. And I'm like, I have this like a vision of how technology plays into this at a much bigger picture.
Right.
And it's just, I need to just do it. I think it'd be really interesting. I know a lot about the various intersects of how it all works together. But I'm not by any means like a knitting technician type person, like with incremental changes.
Although, okay, so I'll just leave this here as a cutting point in case we need to. I thought of you this week with a Fast Company article about Gap and Old Navy. Did you see this? So Old Navy had this huge go-to-market thing a year ago, 2 years ago, something like that. I guess I'll find the article and put it in the show notes. But it was essentially, we're going to carry every size in every style that we're doing from size 0 to size 30 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Well, they've decided they're not going to do that anymore. The CEO that brought that concept to Old Navy is fired, and they're rethinking how they're doing their their go-to-market with their
flashbacks.
Mm-hmm. But it was interesting coming off of the conversation with you where you ran through your Excel sheets and how you're sizing your stuff and the thought and the effort that has to go into that. Granted,
I have to do it anyways.
Yeah, it's like knitting isn't necessarily at the same scale as, Old Navy, but
right.
It's the same level of thought up to a point,
Yeah. Well, mine is the same level of thought of they're hoping to get more people to come into their stores because they have more sizes. They're more size inclusive. Knitting is writing out a pattern in which people can knit their own garments my hope is that by being size inclusive, I have more people that are willing to purchase my patterns. So that thinking is very similar. The difference I think really comes into play is mass manufacturing clothing doesn't have great margins to begin with.
Right.
And it's not repeatable. So my product is a digital product. So I make it once and multiple people buy it. So for me to do the little extra math that I'm going to have to do anyways, because I have to do size extra small or small through large or extra large, it's literally just a couple extra numbers into the Excel spreadsheet. It's not that much of a lift for me in order for the payout of having the exact same pattern in place and then having more people be able to buy it. So it's different in the play out that way. If I was making actual garments, I could see how I hate to say this because I don't agree with it in a lot of ways. I think we should have a lot of things that are size inclusive. There are people that need clothing just as much as other people that are size 0 or whatever. But
right.
I could see from a manufacturing standpoint, when you have such low margins and you are also having questionable practices because you're Old Navy and you have everything made overseas by, I don't even know who, that you're trying to preserve money at the top. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, but it's also, if you have all this extra inventory of sizes that aren't being purchased,
right,
that's a whole separate issue.
Oh yeah.
And
the fashion industry
is bad business. It's just bad industry,
Well, the fashion industry is the most polluting industry. It's one of the most. I shouldn't say the most. I don't know the exact stats of how it stacks up against other industries, but we are everyone, even I want to donate my clothing. But I know that when I donate my clothing to a Goodwill, that they are throwing out. They just have so much donated that they will not sell everything that they get. And actually I got served an ad on social about a company who you can pay them to send you bags and you send your clothes back to them and they recycle those clothes. And I actually did that. And I thought it was a genius idea. I will gladly pay people to take stuff away from me now so that I don't have to, and that actually it's recycled and done sustainably, because that's the point that we're at least for me. So I went down a rabbit hole there, but the fashion industry is really interesting to me, even though I don't technically consider myself part of it. But that's probably a whole nother topic for a whole nother day.
Yeah, that was earmark that one.
We went from social media to the fashion industry.
Well, I mean, it all relates back. I was going to try to do a transition, back to sort of what we meant to talk about. But that's the joy and the fun of having these kind of mastermind conversations, right? You see where they go. And who knew David Chang and knitting could be, in the same episode?
Yes. David Chang and knitting, absolutely. David Chang, I think we could probably figure out a way to get him into every single episode if we wanted to. And he's that great that I would do that. I would do that for you, David. I would.
Well, let's put him down on the never gonna happen, guest list. But exactly. Wouldn't it be nice? We'll put that. Never going to happen, but wouldn't it be nice? That'll be the title of the column. Yeah. So with your approach to social, though, because I know that you've done a lot of stuff with TikTok and giving away yarn instead of, I mean, you know, we talk about the push-pull marketing thing, but you are literally pushing yarn on people.
Not that they want it, though. I mean, okay, I love that you say push it on people, because it's like, in the knitting community, yarn can be really cheap or really expensive. And obviously, like, there are stigmas that go along with both. And you can't donate yarn to like a Goodwill.
Right.
They don't take it. You can donate them to like various groups, but I have yarn that I can't donate because those groups typically will make stuff for like babies in the NICU, and they don't take natural fibers. They only take acrylic. I have a crap ton of yarn that's natural fibers that are beautiful. I just don't want them. I have done the math on most of my yarn, even the ones that you can see here. It would take me well over a year. And that's if I knitted every single day and had things lined up, well over a year to even like make a dent into this stash. So I was like, I want to get rid of my yarn. Let's see what happens. I don't know how expensive it's going to be. I'm going to pay for it all out of my own pocket. And I did. I know exactly how much I spent. It wasn't really the money as so much as it was like the time commitment to like go to the post office, package everything up and go to the post office, which like, it was kind of cool. Cause it's like, oh, it's like, I almost like an e-commerce, and I like have products that I'm mailing out. So I got to pretend that for a little bit, but I really wanted to get yarn to people who could not afford it right now and wanted to knit or wanted to do some sort of yarn or fiber craft. And I especially wanted to focus on like people of color and people like LGBTQ plus, people who like aren't seen in our community as like necessarily like the bigger part of the community, or aren't fully accepted all the time too. That did happen to some extent, but of course the TikTok algorithm does play a part in that too. So it was some really interesting experiments with it. I kind of hit like a plateau, and so I decided to take a break from it. Plateau on TikTok, as well as my pocketbook / time that I was dedicating to it.
So tell me more about the TikTok piece, because it seems like that would be something where, you know, I mean, as a former consultant, right, you talk about, okay, well, we could do a giveaway on social, and we need to get the lawyers involved, but, you know, giveaways are popular. I mean, I did one with Mia Hamm as part of an old thing. I can talk about that.
I was like,
it's long enough ago. So I mean, they're fun, and they work really well when they're done well. I mean, like anything.
Mine was not done well, and that wasn't the purpose. It was just to like, my purpose was literally to get yarn in someone else's hands and out of my house. So I would just go on randomly and be like, hey, I've got another set of yarn up for grabs. And I would talk through what the yarn was, and then maybe offer up ideas of what it'd be good for. Like, I have so much of actually this yarn, and I gave this away, but I was like, hey, FYI, like, here's what it looks like knitted up in herringbone stitch. And it's going to totally like peel, like not peel. What's the word? Pill. It's going to pill because of the nature of the yarn, like not being as tightly wound. So like, FYI, if you want this one, you can have it, but I'll give you a heads up on that. And like a lot of times people don't, what I'm noticing on TikTok is, at least and I'm going to say women, because I don't know a lot of male TikTok knitters. I follow a lot of more male knitters on Instagram. The ones who are new to the knitting world haven't learned some of this stuff yet about like the yarn choices, or why you would use a certain, I saw one girl, she made a sweater and she didn't use the right cast on. And so she put it on and it's got stuck here on her head because she like, it was too tight because it wasn't the right cast on. So like, I digress. So yeah,
you all got to start somewhere, no matter what you do.
No, exactly. But that's what's cool about like TikTok is you're seeing like people experience knitting in their own way. And I didn't want to go on there. And because I saw that, I was like, I don't want to go on there and be like the auntie who's like, you should have done this. Like, she's going to learn that. Obviously she learned that. She put on the sweater and was like, oh shit. And like, she'll learn how to cut that out and then create a new one if she wants. And so I offer up tips and stuff that I think are interesting, but like, I don't try to correct anybody else because that's not my place. If people want answers to questions, they can always ask me, but I don't know. I thought about the way I wanted to show up on the platform before I started posting too. And like, so I joined and I started looking at a lot of stuff and following a bunch of hashtags so that knowing hashtags so that I would, could understand like who's out there and what they're already doing for content. And I didn't want to try to overtake people who had a space that like I thought was interesting, but I don't know more than them. So I'm going to leave that to them. And I've even like tagged them in posts when people are like, hey, I don't want to use I feel really guilty for using acrylic because of all the blah, 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 blah. And it's like environmental impacts. And I was like, hey, that's a really good point. Here's why I think that you shouldn't feel guilty. And also this person has really great references of how to help you with that. Like there are bags you can wash your knitting stuff in. So yeah, I think knowing the platform before you jump in with your own content is a really smart idea. I think at some point that you have to pull the trigger and start experimenting with your own stuff too. But I think being respectful about the community that's already there is really important.
Yeah, I mean, so what takeaways are you going to go with in now that, like, as you start promoting your own stuff and you launch your site this year?
For TikTok in particular?
Whatever you want to talk about.
Are you laughing because they're like hoping that I'll launch this year?
Yeah, I'm trying to put a time limit on this publicly so that you.
I know. No, I actually have a deadline that I need to crunch to right now. I just keep putting it off and I need to not. But I have all the excuses in the world, but I need to stop putting it off. Anyways, for TikTok in particular, I think it's going to be, I've actually given this a lot of thought, and I think kind of showing some of the behind the scenes for the design process would be interesting. And not in the sense of like, you can become a designer too, and I will teach you. There are really cool people out there already doing that. And I would be privileged to be among them. I am there. They deserve all the credit. I want to send people their way. But just because it's like, hey, I chose this for a reason. And maybe that might actually be the thing that makes them go, I love the way that looks and I want to do that technique. Or I love the way this looks and I want to try out a seamless sweater. Things of that nature, like that, like unique value prop, but putting it in the lens of like, this is why I chose this as a designer. Like, this is why I think that this is a really cool way to do it. And it's already kind of showing up in the community. This is not unique. It's just like how I would talk about it, me personally. I think it's slightly different.
Well, so building off of that, I think, we might have talked about this the last, recording that we did, but I mean, it's worth talking about again. Just because somebody else has already done it doesn't mean your unique take won't resonate with other people, right? Like, going back to
as long as your take has something of value there, in your opinion. If you're
there's that, but then there's also just like your approach might be more
true approach.
Your way of thinking, your way of describing it might just resonate with certain people better, or other factors you can't account for. Like there was a comment on the BGO channel that was just like, oh, okay, this finally clicked for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's like, perfect. But then for me, like when I think about my musical journey, there were certain bands that I wasn't into until, a certain event happened. And I had a previous wrist injury with this hand in college. And so, basically like my shoulder muscles were so tight that it was pulling the bones like apart from one another, which was then inflaming everything.
I have something similar with my lower back and my legs and feet.
Mm-hmm. So luckily for me, it went away and I just, I'm fine now. But at the time, like I could balance a cup of coffee in my palm and that was all I could do with this hand. And, so playing guitar was a huge thing for me, right? And I had to do all the college stuff. I had piano classes that I was supposed to be doing. And at the time, I read an article with Dave Mustaine, who's the lead guitar player of Megadeth. And never really liked the music, never really, necessarily liked the guy just because of the Metallica Megadeth feud, which, I'm not going to get into here.
Yeah, I don't even know who Megadeth is.
They're a really great band. Okay. So is Metallica. But essentially, like he had something similar where he had like some nerve damage or something where he had to basically like figure out what he could and couldn't do on the guitar again and build back up to a certain playing level. Even though he was already like halfway through his career.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was like reading all the stuff that he went through, all the stuff that he did, and the fact that he just didn't give up, because it would have been easy just to roll over and be like, well, I can't play anymore. Right. It was just like, okay, no, I can get through this. I can do more. It's just a matter of doing it. Right. So, that kind of inspiration, you cannot ever actually say, all right, I'm going to inspire this many people. You just have to put it out there and let it happen.
No, that's the scary part though. Like, I'm not like looking to inspire people. I like doing knitting patterns. I like the challenge of it. I just want to put it out there to see if other people, it's like more selfish. Like, I want to see other people knit my patterns because I think that'd be cool. Like, something I designed, someone else completely like took the time to knit it and put it on their body. Like, that's freaking cool. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm not looking to inspire people. I guess I'm looking to be inspired. Like,
well, I think that's at least within the guitar community and the people that at least I pay attention to in the music world. There is a recognition of, I'm really good at this particular thing, and I love this player because they do this particular thing, even though we're in the same genre. I could never play the same way that guy does, or that girl, or
I appreciate that type of respect. I didn't find it in the photography community. Instead, I found a bunch of people who were always constantly threatened. Mm-hmm. And it was like,
there's certainly that too. That happens a lot more in the local music scenes, because everybody's fighting for. Cool. Yeah, and everybody knows everybody, and people are just petty anyway. But when you get your group of people together, you will attract the right people, and I do think that when you're confident in your own abilities and what it is you do and what you're interested in, then you have the space to be like, you know what? Yeah, that's a really cool approach. I could never do that, but awesome.
Yeah.
Glad it exists.
Right. Yeah.
So awesome. Well, I know I could keep going on forever, but that's because I stay up way later than you. So
yeah, I'm like starting to yawn, and I'm like, this is really interesting, but I also would love to sleep. Mm-hmm. That's great.
So, all right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
This was, I don't know, I enjoy these a lot, so I'm just going to keep doing it. Same. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, share.
All the things.
If you're on podcast player, please share and subscribe and write a review. This is it for this week, and we'll see how that or turns out.
Can we just add like a little seal in? Or.
Yeah, I'll save that for
like a social clip.
But then also like a sound effect. I'll just like add it in.
Oh my God, no! I don't want to hear my voice over and over and over again. No.
If we ever have a live event, I'm going to have that on a MIDI switch.
Oh, fuck you! That's
huge, like 1,200 watt speakers.
No. No.
Okay, on that note, before I get in trouble, take care, everybody, and we'll see you in the next episode.
If you have questions, let us know.
All right, bye.
Bye.